Season 3. How in the world are we already at season 3? Jessica, we've been doing this for a full year now. It's been a full year. Yep. The website renewed, parentingporcupines.com. We've been at this for a full year, and we're starting season 3 tonight with our Pride episode because this is Pride Month. We have a special guest in the studio with us. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We're the Libertarian Moms. We're about to get started. In all this time off, I probably could have done some rebranding. I could have actually put some effort into making like a new video. It's not what I did. Yeah. Celebrated my kid's birthday, hung our pride flag on the house. Like that's pretty much what I did in our time off. What have you been doing in your time off, Jess?
All the things. All the things. Working, trying to stay sane.
Finishing up the school year too, right, Melissa? Your kids all finished up?
Friday.
Yeah. This coming Friday or last Friday?
This coming up Friday.
You got a whole nother week?
Wow, you guys are late.
Yeah, our kids are done.
They don't actually have anything to do. It's just playing around for a week because you have to be at school 180 days.
Yeah, man. We got ours knocked out. Holly was done. Holly was done before her birthday. When we were planning our calendar, we figured out how to get her 180 days in before her birthday. So she was done by the time she had her friends over for her party on June 5th.
Oh, my friends were for 2 weeks.
Yep. Yeah. Her friends were so mad. They were like, how are you already out of school? And she's like, man, I homeschool. She's like, we did stuff on Saturdays. We went and because the day that we saw Spike Cohen at the State House during the election season, she counted that as a homeschool day because she did the whole tour of the State House and all that. So yeah, Anyway. We are the Libertarian Moms, and this is our first episode of season 3. So thanks for hanging with us. And we're back from a short break that we took after season 2. If you missed any of those season 2 episodes, they're all on the blog, on the website at parentingporcupines.com. And you can catch up those back episodes on our YouTube channel as well. They're all there, free and open to the public. The last one we didn't have show notes for. We invited our husbands on and we played like a little dating game. And it went funny.
Very well.
It was sort of funny, but it was also a little awkward and weird. And so I think we were all just kind of done with it at that point. 15 episodes in, we were kind of done. But anyway, so for today's episode, Jess, you did the show notes. I'm going to stop talking and let you take the lead here and introduce our guests that we've got with us.
Well, unless you've been living under a rock, you know that June is Pride Month, which is a month where we work toward awareness of the LGBTQ plus community and issues that impact them, and looking at how we as a community and a society can support them as people. So as we were working on our programming schedule for season 3, we thought that since we were kicking off in the middle of June, that it would be a good time to kind of talk about that topic and how we talk to our kids about it, if we're talking to our kids about it, and just kind of how we navigate those conversations in our homes. And we were very excited tonight that we were able to get Ashley Shade to join us. And Ashley is the chair of the Massachusetts Libertarian Party, and she's also the chair of Outright Libertarians, which is an organization within the libertarian community that works to be a bridge to the GSM community, which is gender sexual minorities. And if I say anything wrong, I'm sure she'll correct me when she's on. But they also, so they work to spread awareness within that community about libertarians and what we believe and kind of how we support them in our policies, politically speaking. And then they also work kind of behind the scenes as we're creating platform changes and policies. They work to make sure that community is included in the conversation. So they're doing some very important work, not only in their community, but also in the party. So we're super excited that Ashley's able to be here tonight. And Ashley is also a transgender woman. So
let's do this. Let's invite Ashley in. Welcome, Ashley, to the studio. Hi, Ashley.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me.
This is the first time we're meeting you, or at least the first time Melissa and I are meeting you. I think, Jessica, have you talked to her before? This is the first time we've actually met, I think, in person.
Yeah, just online. We've talked online the last couple of weeks about scheduling and things, but
we're glad to have you here. Most of our episodes are about parenting, or about, how we talk to our kids and all of that. And so we tend to not spend a whole lot of time about libertarian politics necessarily, or the libertarian platform. So, and you'll notice in the show notes that we built today, like I told everybody, they're on parentingporcupines.com. You'll notice that those show notes talk a little bit about how we talk to our kids about this. So Jessica, let's do it. Let's jump right in. Or Ashley, if you've got some stuff you'd like to share with us right off the bat, maybe we start with you.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So first, I just want to, for clarification's sake, I'm the chair of the Libertarian Party of Massachusetts, not the Massachusetts Libertarian Party. There's a legal distinction. The Massachusetts Libertarian Party doesn't technically exist under Mass law, so we are officially legally the LP of Massachusetts. It's weird, technical stuff, but just to throw that out there. But yes, it is Pride Month, and there are very serious yet important discussions that have to happen with children, with people, when it comes to human rights, when it comes to the rights of all people. However, explaining what transgender is, explaining what gay means, they're really simple. And to be honest with you, most children get it better than the adults do.
it's true.
Yeah,
that's definitely true.
It's 100% true.
So the first question that I have, or that I put in the show notes was, we're just going to dive right into this, right? So have we had people from the LGBTQ plus community in our children's lives? So have our children had anybody from that community as someone who is a consistent part of their lives? Melissa, do you guys have anybody?
Not that we see on a regular basis. We have friends, but they live in Connecticut, so we see them once a year, or California, so we don't see Stephen very often. But they've met gay people. I don't think they even knew, it didn't even register that they might be different. It was just, these ladies are married. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go on with my day. They didn't care. It doesn't even register.
It's interesting you say that, you put it that way. We had a conversation with somebody one time where what the person said was they're teaching homosexuality in kindergarten in New York. And I was like, wait, what? And I was like, number one, you don't teach it. Let's start with that. Yeah. Number one, that's not a thing that gets taught, right? And number two, if you have a kindergartner and his family is a mom and a dad, right? A male and a female couple. And then he's got a classmate who has two moms and another classmate who has two dads. It's okay to acknowledge that's a family. And this is the kind of family they're in. So simply saying out loud, this is the family they're in, doesn't mean you're teaching homosexuality to kindergarten kids. Come on, let's not run off the block with this, right? Put it in perspective. But we definitely do. So my aunt and her wife are very much in our life. My cousin Preston is down in Miami, and he's gay. And then we've got, we've just got a dozen friends or more. Our friends Agatha and her wife, and they just had a baby. And we, like I said, before we got on the air, we have our pride flag on the front of the house. Holly's my daughter's 13. She's very active in the LGBTQ community online. Spends a lot of time watching gamers and YouTubers, that this is who they are and part of what they are. And this is, for us, it's very normal. It's very much a part of just who we are in our household and in our family.
Yeah, I think that's true for us too. I've got some friends who are part of that community, but and I'm just going to say the community for short, because inevitably, if I say the letters every time, I'm going to screw that up. It's a mouthful, but the friends that I have that are part of the community have never really been part of our family life, and that's not intentional. But my husband actually has a cousin who she's gay, and she recently got married, and we love her wife, and they're a great couple. They're a really awesome example of love, and it's just something that we don't make a big deal of it. We just kind of let it go, and if the kids have questions, we answer them. So the other question is, has your child or have your children come to you having experienced a peer coming out? Casey, have you had an experience? Has Holly had an experience with a friend?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to out any of them on Facebook, but yes, absolutely. Yeah. She's going into 8th grade, and this is, 6th grade and 7th grade was the time frame where a lot of people were having these conversations with themselves, with their friends, and some of them with their parents. Not all of them with their parents. I know about a few that have not talked to their parents about them, but they've talked to Holly, and Holly's talked to me, right? So yes, absolutely. That's already part of our life, part of the conversations we're having.
That's awesome. Melissa, what about you guys? I know that your kids their school has been a little bit affected. Have they had peers?
No. My girls are in kindergarten and 2nd grade, and my son is going into 6th, but he's been homeschooled for 3 years. So he's not around very many kids, but we'll see how next year goes. He's going to actual school.
Jackson, actually, he told me this year he had not a friend, it's not somebody that he knows well, but a classmate who had come out to some friends. And I think that classmate was struggling. And so the conversations that we had were more focused around, how to help them, being comfortable in who they are, just being supportive and caring, compassionate, and those sorts of things. So, Ashley, if you don't mind, would you tell us a little bit about your experience coming out? I mean, who was your biggest support? What could people have done differently to help you transition? Like, what was that like for you?
Transitioning was difficult. So, it's a different type of coming out when you're coming out as gay or bisexual or lesbian than it is to come out as transgender. One is about who you love, and one is about who you are as a person. And so they're really different experiences. My coming out was difficult. I grew up in the community where I came out in, and so everybody knew me as somebody else. When I was younger, I played football in high school. I played semi-professional football after school. So I was known as this big football player, Nobody knew that this was part of who I was. I kept it really well hidden. I didn't have people that I could really confide in. It was something that ate away at me for a long time. And it eventually, for me, became a life or death situation where I needed to choose to be authentic to myself or no longer be alive. That's what the world came down to for me. And so my experience with coming out kind of began about a year before I did. I had a near-death experience and decided, you know what? I'm miserable, and I need to figure out why. I need to figure out what's going on in my life that's happening. And I came to the conclusion that I'd been burying this my entire life, just hoping it would go away. And it was never going to go away, so I needed to figure it out. So I took the time to start figuring it out. And at this time, I was living away from where I live now. I was living near Boston, which is about 2.5, 3 hours away from where I grew up and where I live in Massachusetts now. So out there, I was free to try things. I was free to figure things out without judgment because I didn't care. Nobody here knew me. So I started the process, and I figured out pretty quickly that, Ashley is who I always was. It's who I need to be. And when I came back, it took me a little while to start the process of transitioning. I moved back, and I originally moved in with my parents for a few months, and then I finally got my apartment, And within 3 days of moving into my place, I came out because I was secure. And that's another really important thing that's to think about when someone is coming out is security. Am I going to have a home? Or is my family going to disown me? Are people going to cut me out of their lives? Are people going to try to hurt me because I come out, because I am who I am? I can remember the day very clearly. September 3rd, 2014 was the first day I officially walked outside as Ashley to the public. And I worked in a very public setting. I was working in a pharmacy, and I worked at CVS, very busy pharmacy, lots of people come in. So my coming out was very, very public. And I recall walking to work that morning, and I got sick multiple times. I was so afraid. I've never been, as an adult, as afraid as I was of that day. And nothing will ever scare me as much as that day did. And so it went well. It went without incident. There were some people who said things. There was a lot of encouragement and support, more than I was expecting. And I was able to move on with my life and begin the process of being who I was. And that day was the most liberating day of my life. You know, being your most authentic self is the most freeing thing you could do. It is the ultimate form of liberty to just be, this is who I am, this is who I'm going to be, and nobody and nothing is going to take that away from me. It is liberating. It is so freeing. And it allowed me to then begin changing my life, changing my perception of the world. And it allowed me to become a kinder, friendlier person and help. And it led me to help others. You know, again, the fear I felt will always live with me from that day. And nobody should ever have to walk out of their home and be afraid the way I was. And that's why I'm here, and that's why I do what I do, because nobody should ever have to be afraid to be who they are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Agree with that. We've had conversations on here before about authenticity and about that exact thing that you said in terms of being the person that you're meant to be and being proud of that person. And the people that don't accept that, that's their problem and not yours. And that's definitely been a big lesson that we have all used in our homes with our children, right? Telling our kids, be yourself. If people don't like you for who you are, then that's their problem, not yours.
Themselves. Yes.
Exactly. The goal as a parent is to raise the most authentic kid you can get, and that kid feels confident in their authenticity. So, I mean, kudos to you. And I'm so grateful that day went better than you expected it to. That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was, you know, publicly, it went better than I expected. You know, the other thing about it, and here's, you know, what kind of led me into getting involved in activism. I'm 6'2". I used to be a semi-professional football player. Nobody's going to walk up to my face and insult me or try to hurt me. It's just not going to happen. It would be a very bad idea. You know, it would have been a very bad idea for them. It would still be a very bad idea now for those people who know me. I'm sure they've seen the pictures of me picking people up at conventions. I'm still very strong. And yes, I could probably throw somebody across the room if they were trying to hurt me. So, you know, I've never had the issue of fearing for my safety, but that's also been my big advantage, is that I'm not afraid for my safety. There are so many people in my community who are. So it is my responsibility to step up and stand up and speak out for them. I like to think of my activism as I did when I played football. There's an analogy there. When I played football, I played offensive and defensive line. On defense, my job was to take a double team, to get two people to block me because I was bigger than everyone and they needed two people to stop me. That allowed somebody else to go make a play. On offense, my job was I had two jobs. One was to protect the people behind me, and the second was to clear a hole so other people could run through. And that's what I equate my activism to. I protect the people behind me, and I clear a path for others to run through. so they don't have to go through what I did.
I love that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I love a good football analogy too. Bring it.
Yeah, yeah. And you can see
Absolutely.
my helmets on the wall behind here. There's two of them. My high school and my semi-pro helmet. They're right up there on the wall.
That's
So,
awesome.
Ashley, let me ask you this. I mean, do you think that as we work toward awareness and raising the next generation to be kind and compassionate and accepting, do you think that those days are going to go differently for that next generation than they did for you? Do you think that the work that we're doing is helping? Are you seeing any benefit?
Absolutely. I mean, children today can actually come out and talk about it, even as far back as when I was in high school. And that was, I mean, I graduated in 2005. So, wow, 16 years ago.
That's nothing, man. I graduated in 95, right?
Oh, you beat me by
You're
a couple
a
of years.
baby, Ashley. You're
Ashley's a baby.
But yeah, I mean, even 16 years ago, there's no way I could have came out in high school. There's absolutely no way that I could have come out in high school and been safe, been able to even finish school without abuse and harassment. You know, it would have been a nightmare. And let's face it, middle school and high school suck.
Yeah, they do.
It sucks as a child. There's already enough peer pressure and bullying and harassment. And you add being different on top of it, and it just adds a whole nother layer. But kids are more accepting these days, I believe. And I believe as we learn to normalize that love is love, and that people can love whoever they choose or whoever they fall in love with, that's a good thing. We need more love in the world. We should be encouraging more love. Yeah, this child has two mommies because they love each other, and that's all there is to it. Okay. And when you tell a 5-year-old that, they say, okay, can I have a snack? Or, okay, can I go play? They don't care because to them, okay, they love each other, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, and that needs to be normalized. Love needs to be normalized. Parental love, unconditional parental love needs to be normalized. Unfortunately, it's revolutionary for parents to accept their children when they're gay or trans or part of the LGBTQ community. And that really has to change. It shouldn't be revolutionary to love your child. It should be normal to love your child. Whether you agree or disagree with their life choices, they're still your child and you should still support and love them.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I said it better myself.
So one of the things that I see, I think the most frequently, and this is probably a bigger topic than we have time to sandwich in, but we did want to, I think, touch on it is, you know, there are a lot of vile comments on the internet. There's a lot of ignorance in comment threads. I try not to hang out in there too much because it makes me lose a little bit of faith in humanity. But one of the things that I think we struggle with, especially in the Southeast, is moral objection, right? I was raised in a Southern Baptist home. I grew up in a Southern Baptist church. And so there is a lot of, you know, I grew up around a lot of moral objection. I say that because that's what they would probably call it. And so I'm curious to know, Melissa and Casey, how do you guys have people in your lives who have those moral objections? And how do you handle that being a part of the conversation with your kids? How do you avoid that being an influence? Melissa, you look like you have some things to say about this. So.
Oh my God. So my grandfather, he passed a few years ago, but he always said, you know, he was accepting, but he didn't think it was right. And he had what you'd call moral objections to being gay and lesbian. But he always said, God said to love everybody. Your job is just to love people. He'll sort it out afterwards.
Yeah.
Which, okay, yes, your job is to love everybody. You don't get to be the judge. Just love them.
Yep.
That's all you have to do.
Yeah.
So that's what
we have this.
said.
I think on our moral objection conversation, we were talking a little bit about it last weekend. Holly's party, not only did her friends come over, but their parents all came too, because we all hang out together. And so the parents had a big conversation about this in the kitchen. And, one of the things that I came across, and I'm doing that, I think I told you guys I'm doing that Bible study, the Ezra Bible study. And we talk about the different translations of the Bible. And one of the things in this study we have to sort of accept is that there are no wrong translations. There's just the translation that fits in your life, the thing that matches your values, that matches what you believe. And so on the moral objection question, for me, if, again, to Melissa's point, showing love, showing compassion, showing care for other human beings, and then recognizing that they have just as much a right to their interpretation of morality as the rest of us do, and that my version, my interpretation is where I'm comfortable with my morality. I'm comfortable with how we feel about it, and if they're comfortable with how they feel about it, then they have just as much right to that. And I think on the libertarian side, it's always so hard to do that, right? To extend that grace to other people. I want liberty, which means everybody else gets it too, and it's like, oh, but what are they going to do with it? You know what I mean?
But it's tough because you see it in the comment threads and you're like, oh, that person does not need a whole lot of freedom.
That's right. You should hem that person in, right? So what do you think, Ashley, about this idea of the moral objection? I mean, how would you address that?
It comes down to something that's really simple. In the Bible, it doesn't say that gay people should be prosecuted or executed or removed from society. It doesn't say anything at all about transgender people. What it says is that God created all people in God's image. That means we are all God, right? So God is gay, God is straight, God is trans, God is cisgender, God is everybody. What it really is God is love. And in the New Testament, they teach it very clearly. Mm-hmm. Do not judge. That's God's job. Mm-hmm. Love your neighbor. Love your enemy. Everyone is your friend. Look out for each other. Take care of each other. It doesn't matter if they sin. If you repent your sin, you'll be allowed into the kingdom of heaven. Mm-hmm. It's that simple. So instead of judging people, instead of trying to hurt people, love them unconditionally. Love them as you would love your own family. Yep. And if you have a moral objection, fine. That's okay. You don't like my lifestyle? I understand. But if you use your moral objection to try to legislate my life, now we've got a problem.
That's where there's a problem.
Yep. Yes.
So we have the First Amendment, which allows you to practice your freedom of religion. What it does not allow you to do is enforce your religious beliefs on other people.
Amen.
And therefore, you can live and believe and practice whatever you want. But as soon as you try to put your religious views into laws and into regulations on everybody else around you, that's not protected by the First Amendment. That is not what the founders had in mind. And that is not okay. And when you do that, we've got a problem. So you don't have to like my choices, but don't try to stop me.
But we can't see the difference between that and Sharia law.
That's exactly, I think, how we approach the conversations with our kids, because having grown up Southern Baptist, having family who are still Southern Baptist, who haven't quite gotten to a place of acceptance. They do, they have made comments, and we have had to have conversations with our kids. And that's always, it doesn't matter if it's talking about accepting someone who is part of the LGBTQ plus community, or if we're talking about someone who is an alcoholic. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's, your job is to love them. Your job is to treat them with respect. It doesn't matter if you understand their circumstances or choices. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if you like their circumstances or choices. It is your only job to love them and respect them as you would want them to do for you. Right. I think that's really the most important part of that conversation.
We actually got a question. We're getting some great comments here. So thank you, Proud Libertarian, for our rainbow hearts. And thank you, Kimberly, for talking about how it is tough to extend that liberty to others. And yet that's what it's all about, right? Is recognizing that if we have the right to that liberty, then others do as well. But Charluch is watching on YouTube, and he wants to know, Ashley, what your view is on transgender persons competing in sports for the opposite sex, right? So for their trans sex.
This is what it comes down to. When we're talking about athletics, let's look at it objectively. The legislation on the books that's being proposed in states, there's 3 types of legislation being proposed that are really serious problems. One is preventing trans youth from participating in sports. The second is preventing trans youth from seeking and getting medical care from medical professionals. And the third is preventing transgender people from using public restrooms. Here's the deal. When it comes to sports, if this were really truly about equality, sports would be separated by height, weight, and hormone level, not by gender.
It'd be like boxing. Yeah, you'd have
It
weight
would be
class.
very much like boxing. Exactly. Let me tell you this. When it comes to youth sports especially on the younger levels, the girls are more athletic than the boys. They
My
really
son's
are.
in co-ed soccer, and the girls run ragged around those boys.
Exactly. You know, but look at it this way. You know, women athletes can compete with men. There's this idea that women are physically, that men are physically superior to women, that women just aren't good enough, they don't compete. And there's just this misogynistic view that men are stronger, faster, better than women that we need to get over in society. Female athletes can compete with men. There are many female athletes that could outrun men. Now, when we get to the professional ranks, it's a little different, and those are private sports leagues. But let's look at the facts here. One, public schools are funded by public dollars, and the government has to represent all of their constituents. Trans parents pay taxes too. So if they're being forced to pay taxes to have their children in school, their children should be able to compete. Number 2, and this comes up with the healthcare issue. If you're going to sit there and say that medical professionals who actually know what they're doing and understand transgender healthcare can no longer provide transgender healthcare to youth, then you're effectively saying if you were transitioning from male to female and you were taking hormones, you would be able to compete on the same level as any other female. You wouldn't have that natural advantage that everybody's talking about. By preventing trans youth from being able to transition under medical care, you're not allowing them access to play fairly. If that's so-called fairly, it's really not. But I mean, you're preventing them from doing exactly what you're saying is the problem in sports to begin with. So you can't have it both ways. You don't get to keep them from getting the healthcare and treatment they need, and what would eliminate their competitive advantage by saying, oh, we're going to keep you from that, and then we're going to keep you out as well. These laws are straight up there for 3 reasons. 1, it's a power play. 2, the government loves to discriminate against marginalized people. And for some reason, there's a large segment of people that are like, yeah, here, take my money and have my votes because you're picking on that group that we don't like. because that's what makes us happy, is seeing other people suffer, seeing other people excluded because they're not like us. They can't be with us. No, they're different. We can't have different people here. You have to conform to our way of life, or you can't be a part of you can't sit with us, right? It's the Mean Girls Club. It really is.
I was just about to say, we only
You
wear
can't sit with
pink
us.
on Wednesdays.
Yeah. So I mean, let's think about it this way. In athletics, the competitive advantage is hormones. It's testosterone. So if you separate by testosterone levels, height and weight, so a girl who is 5'10" and 200 pounds is going to dominate a boy who is 5'2" and 120 pounds at 13 or 17. Let's be clear. That is a competitive advantage. Sure. But that's what we have these sports for. You know, some people are taller, some people are bigger, some people are faster, some people are physically stronger. There are different traits that you can have. Some people are a lot smarter and they understand the strategy better. So it doesn't mean that they can't compete. And to be really honest with you, when it comes to the hormone side of things, as a child, you can't just go to a doctor and say, I'm transgender and I want to transition, and then immediately start hormone therapy and get a sex change 6 weeks later. That doesn't happen. It can't happen. It wouldn't happen. And it doesn't happen in the United States. There's a long, long process when it comes to hormone therapy. And blockers, hormone blockers that are used to help, slow down puberty. Most of the time, not always, but 90% of the time, the effects are reversible. So it gives the child a chance to not start puberty as the wrong gender, or start puberty and physical changes in their body that could otherwise hurt their lives later down on the road. I had to go through puberty twice. I went through puberty as a teenager, and then I started hormone therapy and went through puberty in my late 20s.
Yikes.
You know how much that sucks?
I wouldn't wish that on anybody, Ashley. I'm so sorry.
So if you let children have the proper medical treatment, under the proper medical supervision, transition when they're supposed to with their first puberty, you're saving them a lot of torture. And you're also allowing their bodies to become more natural to what we in society view male and female as. And it'll help them fit in better. It'll help them adjust better. And it'll help them learn things during their puberty that you only learn during your puberty. There's a lot of growing and societal things that you learn during puberty age that when you're transgender, you get later on in life, and I'm still learning things that I didn't get a chance to learn as a teenage girl. So, it's really about, when it comes to athletics, it's simple. The government has no business discriminating. The government has no business regulating public sports. And if public funds are going to schools that have sports programs, all students should be allowed to participate. Simple as that.
Agreed. I like in my head, I'm thinking about that Simone Biles article that went out today about her beating her football player boyfriend in the rope climbing. Have you seen this?
Exactly. Athletes are athletes.
She crushed him in this rope climbing competition.
Yeah, these average men out there who are 5'10" and played basketball in middle school, and they're now 40, and they think they could go play with WNBA players who would just destroy them and just demasculate them if they even tried. And it's professional athletes are just that. They spend hours training. They're in top physical shape, top physical performance. And women can do that too. And I do just want to throw in, for those wondering, the Olympics has a standard when it comes to transgender athletes. It already exists. Transgender athletes have been competing in the Olympics for decades. You don't hear about it, but they have. Trans men, there's no regulations. If you are a transgender male and you want to compete against the men, go at it. For women, it's 3 things. 1, you have to legally declare your gender as female. 2, you must live as that gender for a minimum of a year. And you can't, if you recant your gender, you're disqualified for 4 years. And 3, they test your testosterone levels, and they have to be under a certain level for at least 1 full year. What they found in that full year is that after a year of estrogen therapy, your body fat redistributes, your bone density changes, and your natural male advantage from testosterone is essentially eliminated at that level for over a year. Your muscle mass shrinks, and those competitive advantages that you would have are gone. If they weren't, and that didn't work, you would hear about transgender women dominating every single sport.
Yeah, they'd get all the gold medals. Yeah.
All of them.
Women swimming,
You know how many
weightlifting, things like that.
transgender
Yeah.
athlete? Can you name a transgender Olympian who's won a gold medal?
I can't.
No.
The
No.
only one I can think of is somebody who transitioned years later, and that's Caitlyn Jenner.
Right.
So no, you can't. So there's ways and things to be put in place that combat fairness. This isn't
But I
about
think-
fairness.
No, it's not about fairness. I think it's hysteria. I think and because you brought up the bathroom thing too, and it's hysteria. It's people intentionally pushing a particular hysterical narrative to heap abuse on a minority community, and it's just wrong. It's just wrong. They're wrong in so many ways, and that goes back to what we talked about before. It's for us. It's about love. Show love, share love, spread love, and that's not what these laws do. These laws discriminate, pure and simple.
Absolutely. And just quickly, when it comes to bathrooms, first off, nobody wants to use the public bathroom. They're disgusting. Nobody wants to go in there.
Facts. Facts.
Like, really? No, I really don't. If I've got to go in there, it's because I got business to do, okay? Secondly, we already have laws on the books for people who would go into a bathroom and harass, assault, or stalk somebody, okay? There's already rules against that. Now, this is the Parenting Porcupines. I'm going to make an assumption that everyone here and that your entire audience is in favor of gun rights. I certainly am. Are you? I hope so. So let's look at it this way. When there's a shooting and the legislatures then call, we have to put in new laws. We have to put in all these checks. We have to restrict access. We have to do all these things. What do we say? We say, stop punishing people who haven't done anything wrong just because you think that people will. Why are we punishing people who follow the rules and use their guns and weapons properly? Well, stop punishing trans people for things that you think are going to happen when we've never done these things. It's very, very rare. And it says two things about the people making these laws. One, it says that they believe that women are so weak that someone who is transitioning might harm them. And two, it says what we all know, that these men know how other men behave, think transgender people are men, and think that they're going to be predatory towards women in the bathroom. Well, just because you and your friends are predators doesn't mean transgender women are. Okay, it says a lot more about men in this society and the standards we don't hold them to and their behaviors than it does about trans people. Just throwing that out there. So
Very good points. All very good points.
CJ has left a comment for us as well. He says it's an incredibly nuanced issue, and Ashley gave a great answer talking about the sports question.
Yeah.
He said, I learned something. A bit silly to call anyone who disagrees on the trans sports issue hysterical. I think people are afraid and confused on the issue and shouldn't be insulted. I agree to an extent, CJ, and I don't mean to insult people by calling them hysterical. That's not what I said. I said it's hysteria, and hysteria is agitation. It's people intentionally agitating other people by spreading falsities, right? And saying wrong things, telling lies, and making other people afraid. So those people that are afraid could learn. They could talk to people in this community. They could try to educate themselves. But if they're not going to do that, if they're not going to educate themselves, I have no problem insulting them. Sorry.
yeah, and let's be real about this. These legislatures pushing this agenda are ignoring the advice and recommendations of the medical professionals and experts in these areas because they have their own preconceived notions and their own morality beliefs that they are trying to push on everybody. And so they're ignoring the experts, they're ignoring the people with the answers, with the information, and they are blatantly saying, we don't care about science, we don't care about what is true or false, we care that our religion or our moral beliefs tell us that this is wrong, and we're going to discriminate against people because of it. That's what's happening. That is the truth. So people need to become educated, and people need to take the time to listen to these doctors and experts where we can actually help people.
Yeah,
I've actually learned some things too, because I was very like, I guess because these things don't directly impact me in my life. So they're not things that I've really dug into, that I have formed definitive opinions about, like the transgendered youth sports participation. And so I think this is the perfect example of why having these conversations with people who have lived those experiences is so important, because you learn things, guys. When you talk to people, you learn things. Like, it's just, I think it's just interesting to hear all of that, because those are things that I hadn't thought of, or things that maybe I didn't know. And I'm so glad
things
I didn't. Ashley.
Yes. Because my initial gut reaction is, well, no, boys and girls are different. They should be in different leagues. Like, that's just the gut reaction to the situation and that question. I'm open to answers, but I learned.
You learned a lot.
But I think that our government separation.
The government dictating shit is wrong.
They don't.
Right, that's always wrong.
It's not for them to decide.
But we have this misconception that you can standardize things, and that by standardizing, we're making it fair. And that's just not true in this case, right? If we say the standard is boys sports and girls sports, that's the standard that makes it fair. That's just not true. And so let's revisit the standard. Don't be afraid to do what Ashley suggested and say, what is the real competition here? What are the real indicators of competitive, equity?
Rethink how you divide people up. There's other ways besides, gender.
Redraw the boxes. You don't just have to have two. Right?
Yes.
And when you're talking about youth, especially pre-puberty or pre-teenage, you take an 8-year-old girls and boys soccer team, and they're going to be pretty evenly matched. It's going to be about who's in better shape and who understands the game the most.
Yep.
It's not going to be, there's really no competitive advantage. When hormones start, sure, there can be a competitive advantage, but it's not always necessarily the case. A boy who sits at home and has never ran a mile in his life, going against a girl who runs 5 miles every day, is going to get his butt kicked. So, training, there can be some advantages, but again, this comes down to hormone levels, not so much gender. And what it really comes down to is, do you care about the advantages that a 6'4" man has playing football over a 5'7" man? Does that matter? Is that not fair? Many would argue that that's me being 6'2", and when I played football playing at 330 pounds, was not fair for the people who were 5'8" and 220. But the people who were 5'8" and 220 ran faster than I did.
Yeah, they had different positions.
They just had to make sure I didn't hit them. But when I did, it hurt. So, it's
But they tried to standardize that too, Ashley. They tried to standardize that with the size of the school, right? So you have your 4A, your 3A, your 2A football groups in high school, because the size of the school means you have more athletes available to you, right?
Exactly.
It means you're probably going to have better athletes on your football team. It's all about a figure of standardization. It's all about trying to figure out how do we create some sort of standard here that will make everything fair. And I just think that's a myth. I don't think it's true.
I tell my children every day, life's not fair. Get over it. It's not
everybody's going to have the same life experience. Not everybody's going to be a super athlete or super intelligent or super beautiful or whatever it is, we're all going to have our unique individual strengths and weaknesses.
Mhm.
And I can tell you right now, a few years ago, I was invited to and almost played for a women's professional football team. And those women were far better athletes than most of the men I played semi-professional football with, and would have ran circles around many of them.
I want to know where I
it-
can watch a women's professional football league.
Yeah.
Is
I
this
know,
on
right?
ESPN? Where can I find this?
The Women's Football Alliance, there are teams throughout the country, mostly in major markets, but their championship game has been aired on ESPN3 for years, and their league is a spring-summer league, so it starts around April, and the championships go into August or July or August. So it's more of a spring-summer
Wow.
league. They're around in there's teams everywhere, and there was a lot of debate even amongst the women's football league, about transgender athletes, and they adopted the Olympic rules, and they found that it works.
Yeah.
Because there's an actual scientific measure and standard being used, not just
Trust
preconceived
science.
About
And
gender.
the other thing I really want to touch on the sports thing, and I know we've spent too much time on it, but there's states where they want to have the coaches check the genitals of the players to ensure that they are actually boys or girls.
Oh, hell no.
Not a
Do you
chance.
really
No.
want your child's
No.
coaches looking in your children's
No one
pants
gets
to
No.
check their
No.
genitals?
No.
Let me make
That's
something very
absurd.
clear. In sports, there is unfortunately a rash of sexual abuse, especially in women's sports.
Yeah.
So why would you open that up any further? Why would you ever legislate that the genitals of a child have to be checked for them to be able to be eligible to play?
Well,
That is disgusting. It is abhorrent, and it should never ever happen.
Yeah.
Right. I agree with that.
I'm going to punch the first coach that tried.
Oh my God. That's
It's just
wild.
Yeah.
we definitely went into a rabbit hole here. Thanks, Charlie. We appreciate that question. And CJ, his comments here on our Facebook piece too. So Jess, we're back to the show notes. We've got I think just one more question, which is about inclusivity and compassion, and what do you think, Ashley? Do you think this inclusivity and compassion it seems like it's a trend now? Like there's a lot more people talking about it. We're having a lot of conversations around it. Is it going to make us better? Is it going to make us more creative? Is it going to make us more collaborative? I mean, the more we think of inclusivity, not as a political perspective, but as a social perspective, can you talk a little bit about that before we kind of get wrapped up here in the next few minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this has been my message since I came into the movement. And here in my city in North Adams, I'm running for office. And I'm running my campaign on the ideas that I most believe in, which are compassion, education, and love. This is how we change society and change the world. And when it comes to LGBTQ community, when it comes to racial issues, when it comes to politics, when it comes to humanity, compassion, education, and love are the key. When I talk about compassion, I talk about genuinely listening to other people. Let them speak first. Let them tell you about their experiences as human beings and hear them. Don't just listen to respond. Listen to actually take in and understand that their experience is different than yours. Okay? Take the time to say, okay, I get it. I understand. And then we use education. We can use education to help them. I understand that this was your experience. Here's some information that could help you. When it comes to politics, I understand that this was your experience. Here's an idea that doesn't require more government regulation or interference in our lives that can help solve the problem. Let's work on it together. Let's put it into action. Let's show people that we don't need those types of solutions. If we could do this, and then of course there's love. You don't hear about love in politics. Politics has been designed in the most 30 or 40 years to divide, to pursue hatred. I have to vote for my terrible candidate because the other guy is so much worse. Like, my guy sucks, and I'll acknowledge that they suck. But that guy, oh my God, it's so horrible. They want me to die. They want my life to end. They want me to not be able to provide for my family. They want to take away this. They want to take a. So it's politics as a system has become this, this lesser of two evils system that we have. Well, stop picking shitty candidates. Stop picking evil. Like, we don't have to go down that route. We can have candidates who genuinely care about their communities, who genuinely care about humanity. And that's the point we can get to here. When it comes to compassion, education, and love, let's be real. I would much rather live in a society with people who are kind, treat me with dignity and respect, treat others with dignity and respect, work towards helping each other thrive and grow, than live in a society where we beat each other down, insult each other, and try to prevent each other from living our own lives. Which society do you want to be a part of? Which society allows us to do what the founder said and have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? The pursuit. They always said pursuit of happiness. They didn't guarantee happiness because you can't. But when you pursue happiness
looks different.
Yeah,
exactly. But when you pursue your own happiness, I'm a lot happier when I'm nicer to people. I'm a lot happier when I'm kinder to people, when I can help others, when I see others succeeding. Those things make me happy. Those things are naturally make all of us happy. So why aren't we working to lift all of our happiness up together?
right. Agreed. We need an entire episode, Jess, on whether or not our capitalism creates that kind of mean-spirited competition side, because I think that we hear that a lot. We hear that the reason that people are mean, the reason that they push others down, is because we live in an economically competitive environment, right? So I think we need to. I know we need to add that to the list of is that what's making us all mean as hell? Listen, Ashley, thank you so much for being here. I know I learned a ton. I know Melissa just what a great kickoff to our season 3. This is absolutely fantastic. Ashley, if there's anything we can do to support you in any way whatsoever, please don't hesitate to call on us. We would love to just be part of your community and lift you up. And in any way we can, we want to support you.
What's your fundraising website? What's your fundraising
website?
Yeah. So let me just plug a couple things real quick. First, there's outrightUSA.com. Check out Outright Libertarians. Join. This month is Pride Month, and instead of sending your dollars to corporations, supporting corporations and corporate pride, support organizations like Outright, support local organizations in your community who are actually doing work to help the community, or support candidates who represent the GSM community who are running to help their community and help fight these issues. I am one of those candidates. You can visit my website, ashleyshade.com. We would love to have your supports. And I do want to say this as well. When you're talking to your children about LGBTQ issues, when you're talking to your children about sexuality, when you're talking to your children about transgender or gender identity, there's two things that matter. One, love is love. And everybody has the right at birth to love. And everybody deserves to be loved. And two, all people, whether you disagree with them or not, as long as they aren't hurting other people, should always live their most authentic lives and always be who they are. And that's so important to remember. That's what we need to teach children. It's okay to be different. Even if you don't like the differences, it's okay to be different, as long as they aren't hurting people. And that's what it comes down to. I do also want to say to anyone out there listening that love is truly life-changing. It truly makes all the difference in the world. So spread love wherever you can. Spread kindness wherever you can. If you're hearing this, please know that you deserve to be loved, that you are valid, that you belong here, and that I love you. And thank you for having me.
Ashley, thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
coming.
Ashley. We adore you. That's it for us, Libertarian Moms. Thanks for being with us, you guys. We'll be back next Saturday. You can check out the show notes on parentingporcupines.com. You can see all the different topics that are coming up in the next few months. And like we said, Ashley, we love you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.